If you think all banks and bank accounts are the same, think again. In this video, we're going to show you about the best savings accounts that pay way more interest and the best checking accounts that barely charge any fees. But we're not just going to rattle off a top 10 list of banks that we may or may not have used. We're actually going to give you our personal insights on our favorite banks that made the list because we've actually used them. I'm Stacy from Keeping Up with the Changs, and today we're going to teach you everything you need to know about how to choose the best bank accounts. Not all banks are created equal, but the big banks don't want you to know that because you're scared you're going to jump around. Making a switch, though, can be a super smart move because you might earn up to 20 times more interest than what you're making now, and you could be saving yourself hundreds of dollars in fees. There is such a thing as a better bank account, so let's start with a deep dive into what makes for the best savings accounts. When deciding on a savings account, your first consideration should be how much interest rate they're paying out. A savings account is where you put the money that you want to save. Mind-blowing, I know. But seriously, that basically means that you're not going to touch the money unless an unexpected expense comes up or you've built up enough to pay for something kind of pricey, like maybe a sweet vacation or even a down payment on the house of your dreams. For the most part, the money is just going to sit there, chill, relax, maybe listen to some jazz. You get the point. Since your money is going to be parked there in the bank for a while, you might as well make as much money as you can, which is exactly why we love CIT Bank's Savings Builder account. There can be a huge difference between the lowest paying banks, which is most of them, and banks like CIT, which offer much higher rates. We used to make $8 a month on our savings, but once we switched over to CIT Bank's Savings Builder account, we made $150 every single month on the same amount of money. The interest you earn on your savings account is probably the easiest money you'll ever make, so you might as well go with the highest bidders. As of this video, CIT Bank offers an awesome 2.2% interest rate on their Savings Builder account as long as you deposit $100 a month or you maintain a minimum balance of $25,000. I know it seems like a lot, but it's actually a great way to get yourself in the habit of saving regularly, and it gives you an excellent benchmark to aim for building up a solid emergency fund. So if you're tired of earning barely anything on your interest, make the switch to CIT Bank by clicking on the link in our video description below. Now, if you don't think you can swing the $100 a month or meet the minimum balance requirement with CIT Bank, that's okay. Stick around because when we get to the checking account portion, there is another bank we can offer that should work just fine for you. Now, if you want to skip it all together and look for your own bank, you could look online and see what rates are out there, but keep in mind that these lists aren't updated every day, and you can't get any more information besides what they choose to list on the page. That's why, for this task, I would recommend one of the most underrated sources of personal finance info: Facebook groups. Two of my favorite groups are Choose FI and Women's Personal Finance, Women on Fire. There, you'll find smart, money-minded people who are happy to share their best tips and the lessons they've learned the hard way to save you some hassle. In these groups, they talk about top-paying banks all the time, so you probably get more up-to-date rates here and extra feedback, both good and bad, about these banks to help you make the best decision. Since we're talking interest rates, here's another commonly asked question we get about savings accounts. Let's say, after you've opened your account, your bank drops the rate, or you stumble across another bank that offers slightly more. Should you jump ship? Ultimately, it's your call. Most of the top paying banks are pretty close to each other in terms of the rate they offer. So once you're playing in the big leagues, you're probably missing out on only a fraction of a percent between your bank and the next one. How much that actually translates to depends on how big your savings is. But honestly, for most people, it's not really worth the effort to make the switch just to earn slightly more. But remember, the rate between what the lowest banks pay and what the highest banks pay is pretty big, so that initial jump is almost always worth it. Now, even though maxing out your interest rate should be your number one goal when it comes to savings accounts, there are other factors that would affect whether or not an account is right for you. First off, you have to consider the account's transaction limitations and figure out whether they'll work for you. Thanks to the feds, who want to encourage people to save, Most high-paying savings accounts are actually limited to 6 electronic withdrawals per month. Some banks will even impose a daily or monthly dollar limit as well. Now remember, you're not supposed to be touching this money on the regular, so it shouldn't be a big deal, but always read the terms and make sure you understand them and give some thought to whether or not those limitations work for you. I, for example, have emergency credit cards that I use as a backup in case something comes up and I've already passed my withdrawal limits for the month. Charging it gives me until the next month to make the payment, by which time my withdrawal limits will have reset. So for me, the account limitation isn't a big deal. Another thing to keep in mind is that the rate being offered might only apply to certain states or certain groups of people. We always thought everybody loved Hawaii, but I guess not, because we've had many banks reject our application just because we're from the 50th state. The truth is, banks, and especially credit unions, can be picky about who they do and don't want to do business with. So fair warning, if you see an awesome bank account and a great rate, don't get your hopes up until your bank application has actually been approved. On top of that, some banks do require you to do certain things before you'll earn the high interest rate. Those requirements can be anything, from maintaining a minimum balance to requiring a monthly direct deposit. Some banks might even ask that you use your debit card at least X number of times every month. Again, for CIT's Savings Builder account, you have to deposit $100 a month or maintain a minimum balance of $25,000 to earn the high rate, but I will share another bank option with you later if that doesn't work for you. Whatever bank you go with, always double check the terms and make sure you follow them, because you don't want to do all the work to switch banks only to not earn any more. One more thing, know that interest rates will fluctuate. Look, interest rates will change. You just have to accept that. At most banks, the change won't be dramatic, so if you're among the top tier, it's unlikely that you'll suddenly be at the bottom of the pack. In all the years that we've had CIT Bank, they did change their rate a few times, but so did all the other banks. Despite all that, they still maintained their position as one of the top paying banks throughout it all, so for me, the rate drops, not a big deal. Now there are two more factors that I want to mention that apply to both savings and checking accounts. Factors that are so important, I consider them deal breakers. I will automatically pass if a bank isn't FDIC insured or it charges me a monthly fee. Any legit bank will be FDIC insured, which means that the government's got your back if your bank goes under. You're typically covered for $250,000 per person per bank. There are situations where you could get more coverage, but for now, let's just keep it simple. FDIC insurance is free and automatic, meaning you don't even have to enroll for it, but only if your bank is part of the FDIC program. It's pretty simple to check if a bank is FDIC insured. Just go to fdic.gov and use their bank find feature. If a bank isn't listed, it could be that they're a brokerage or investment company that technically isn't a bank, so they technically can't offer the free insurance, or they just might straight up be a sketchy institution. Either way, I like knowing that my hard-earned money is protected, so I won't budge on the FDIC thing. Of course, CIT Bank is FDIC insured. As for monthly fees, to me, there's no bigger waste of money. I mean, come on, banks, seriously? You already make so much money on your customers, and now you want to tack on another fee for absolutely no reason at all? Not cool. There are lots of banks out there, like CIT, that aren't going to nickel and dime you by charging a regular maintenance fee. So don't waste your money helping big rich banks get richer at your expense. Now there's one more thing about CIT Bank that I love. It's not something you have to look for when you're choosing an account, but I love this so much that I'm going to give them some props here. I've worked with lots of banks over my life, and most of them will claim to be extra secure because they have two-factor authentication, which means before you log in or do certain transactions, they'll call or text you with a code that you have to enter online before you can go forward. My issue is, if a hacker can guess the code, they can still get in and get your money, right? So CIT does it a little differently, where when you go online, they'll show you a code, but then call the phone number on file and require you to punch it in there. To me, that's a much better way of verifying that it's actually me initiating the transaction, because anyone can go online and pretend to be me, but it's very unlikely that those people will have access to my phone. So better security and better interest rates, I can dig that. So if you want to bank better, make the switch to CIT Bank's Savings Builder account by clicking in the link in our video description below. So that covers savings accounts. So now let's talk checking accounts. With checking accounts, it's all about getting free and easy access to your money. So what do we mean by that? Well, earlier we said that the money in your savings account pretty much sits there and does nothing. But with your checking account, it's a totally different story. Now this is the account that you're going to use to do almost all of your day-to-day financial transactions. So it's going to do a lot of heavy lifting for you. Typically, this is where you deposit funds and pull money out of to pay bills and otherwise spend. With all the money going in and out, you need access to your cash in ways that are convenient and preferably free. That's why our checking account of choice is Discover Bank's Cashback Debit Account. They hate fees just like we do, so they give you the most fee-free options to tap into your own money. I don't have to pay for overdraft fees to stop a payment, to get expedited shipping on a replacement debit card. I don't even have to pay to order checks. They're super easy to reach by online message or even by phone if I have questions. And bottom line, they charge me the least fees to use my own money. Paying bank fees doesn't have to be your norm. So if you're over it with fees too, make the switch to Discover Bank's Cashback Debit Account by clicking in the link in our video description below. Now I do want to mention a couple other things about Discover Bank. On top of their great checking account, they offer an excellent online savings account that'll work perfectly for anyone who can't meet the minimum requirements with CIT Bank. Discover Bank doesn't pay quite as much as CIT, but it's still an awesome rate and a perfect second choice. Also, Discover Bank is an online bank, meaning they don't have any physical branches you can go to. If you don't deal with a lot of cash, it's not a big deal. But if you do have cash transactions you need to handle, you might want to skip altogether on online banks, or you can just do what I do and open a local bank that I use strictly for cash transactions. Pro tip, I went with a local credit union that also offered free notary services. That way, it's one less thing I have to pay for if I need those too. But don't forget my deal breaker rules. They have to be FDIC insured, and don't let them get away with charging you a monthly fee. So now you know everything you need to about how to choose better bank accounts, whether they're checking accounts or savings accounts. If you're ready to bank smarter, click on the links in our video description below and sign up for a Savings Builder account with CIT Bank and a Cashback Debit account with Discover Bank. We'd love to get a thumbs up or hear what you have to say, so feel free to give us feedback and leave a comment below. While you're at it, subscribe to our YouTube channel or like us on Facebook to hear more about our unique take on money and happiness. And remember to share the wealth by letting others know about our videos. If you have any friends or family members that want to earn more interest and pay less bank fees, send them our video link. I'm Stacy from Keeping Up with the Changs. Thanks so much for watching. Cheers. That was a terrible clap. Still not that great, but whatever.